What I want to talk to you about today is one of your most impressive and important magical tools that exist within you, and that's the power of rejection. The ability to reject something. We either are afraid of it, or we don't know it exists, or we think that we have to use it sparingly, and that's not true. If you are involved in anything in your life that you don't like, it's because internally you are perceiving something that needs to be rejected. It's important that we learn how to reject things immediately, in the moment. It's similar to what we do with a banishing spell. We have something that we want to eliminate in our life, and we perform whatever operation we're performing, maybe a talisman, and then rip it up and throw it away. Those kinds of things that we do, especially that first week after the full moon, very powerful time to do banishing work. But it's not limited to that. The power of rejection is not limited to banishing spells. If you had to always wait for the right lunar phase to get your needs met in the moment, life wouldn't work so well. So it's great and important and very powerful to align with those lunar phases when we're working our magic. Because what they do is they put us in tune with the rhythms of our magic. And that way, when we are out of sync with those lunar phases, we still have connection to our magic. So if something's happening during the waxing moon that you don't like, you don't have to say, well, shoot, I better wait until the full moon and then I can eliminate it. No, you reject that in the moment. If you want to do something more ritualistic about it later, you can, but often you don't need to. Anything that happens today, from the time that you leave this lecture until you go to bed tonight, notice what is coming at you that you don't want and learn how to reject it. And how do you do that? By saying, I reject this. Just that simple. And if you can't say it out loud, say it internally, but hear it as if it's out loud. I reject this. You don't make a big deal out of it. You don't get angry at it, but you are firm with it. Imagine somebody is trying to sell you something that you don't want. You don't have to be rude to them. You don't have to hit them. You don't have to call the cops on them. You don't have to overreact, but you can be very firm and say, no, thank you. I'm not interested. I don't want to talk to you about this anymore. Whatever's coming at you, use that same sort of rejection with it. Use your power on it. Don't just put up with it. Reject it. I reject this. And then as soon as you reject something, follow it up with what you want instead. Because remember how the universe and nature abhors a vacuum. When you reject something, you are creating a temporary vacuum. And rather than just letting status quo fill it back up, you tell the universe what you want to fill that up with. So for instance, if some bill comes in the mail that you don't think you have the money to pay, you just say, I reject this. I have all the money at every moment of time and point of space that I need to meet my needs, and there's always a surplus. Just that simple. If somebody's coming at you with an argument, in your mind, you can just say, I reject this. I have peace and harmony in all my relationships. We don't know we're allowed to use the power of rejection to our benefit in the moment. You don't have to wait. That's the great thing about being a magus or a witch. You carry your power with you. And yes, of course, we're attuned to the lunar phases. Of course, we're attuned to the solar phases. We work our craft in accordance with that. But we do that so that we have power in the moment. That doesn't mean we're limited by those lunar phases. We're not limited by those solar phases. Those are things we use to build up our power so that we can exist in the world powerfully and use our power. The power of rejection is the one power that I think is underrated or underused by people because they either don't know about it or they don't understand that it's often more powerful than creating something. I see a lot of New Agers that, when they are coming up against something they don't like, they just try to say a positive affirmation about it. Start with rejecting it. Start with your power of no, and then fill up the gap that you've created with what you do want. The power of no, the power of rejection is one of our most important powers. And if we don't use it, it becomes dormant. It becomes flabby. And if we start to use it and build that muscle tone in our auras, we are a force to be reckoned with, a huge force to be reckoned with in the world. Something comes up in the news that we don't like, I reject that. Now, it may or may not cause the thing itself to change, but it causes how it affects you. It makes a huge difference in how it affects your energy, your attitude, your ability to operate within the world. Interestingly enough, when I am confronted with something in the news and I reject it for myself, very frequently I'll notice a change happening in the story later on as a result of maybe many of us rejecting it. It's not for nothing. It's not that it doesn't have an effect on the macrocosm, but that's not why we use it. We use it more selfishly. We use the power of rejection to make sure that we aren't affected by things. If you don't use that power and you just allow yourself to be affected by those things, you get what you get. Sometimes we have to do it again and again for a while because perhaps we don't feel like we deserve to reject a thing. We don't feel like we're strong enough to reject something, but that doesn't matter. Just do it anyway. Keep at it until you feel a click inside of you, until you feel better. I reject this. It's great for financial problems. It's great for relationship problems. It's great for health problems. And some people say, I can't use that on a diagnosis. Why not? Why couldn't you use that on a diagnosis? That doesn't mean that you don't take heed from the doctor. It doesn't mean that you don't take your medication. It doesn't mean that you don't get your testing done. It doesn't mean that you don't do all of those things. But when it comes to the idea of I am sick, I reject that. I reject that. My body is constantly repairing itself. Well, you can't use that with a marital problem. Why not? Your spouse comes up and starts to have a fit about something. I reject this. I only have harmony in my relationships. I reject this. Somebody's yelling at me. I reject this. How that manifests for you might be different depending on the situation. Sometimes I reject something that's happening where somebody's mistreating me verbally, and either they leave the room and I'm done with it, or I leave the room and I'm done with it. But I start off with a rejection. I don't just let it happen without having my say. Usually I do it silently because I don't need to explain myself to people. The power of secrecy is still there, but I use the power of rejection. Sometimes that's all I do all day. If I'm having a so-called bad day, I don't put up with it. Don't put any limits on your power of rejection. Try it for a week and see the difference. Commit to using your power of rejection liberally for the next 7 days and see what happens. Make sure that you do follow up your rejection with something that you want. Call something that you want into play so that you're not just allowing your habitual thought patterns to fill up the gap. Because even if you receive a temporary relief from a situation by rejecting it, you don't want to have to keep rejecting the same thing over and over again. It's something that you want to be able to do once, and then we're not coming back to this anymore. I reject this, and then I'm going to fill up that gap with something else. It's similar to our waning moon flips that we do in the Witchcraft Beyond the Basics course, but we're doing it in the moment as things arise. And there's a place for doing things in the moment, and there's a place for doing things in more of a structured, planned out manner, such as in those courses. You want to do both. Sometimes when you're taking some downtime and really planning things out for yourself, and doing some soul searching, you're taking care of it in advance. You're taking care of the vibrations that are causing those things or allowing you to be more receptive to the things that need to be rejected in advance so that you don't have to do as much rejection in the moment. So it's good to do your regular spiritual work. But then while you're out in the world, having interactions with life, you're still a magus. You're still a witch. You're still a magical practitioner. It's not like you just do it in ritual and then hope for the best. No, you take what you get in ritual with you in the world and you act like it. You act like the powerful magus that you are. And you don't put up with things. You don't put up with it. And again, that doesn't mean that you're angry. You get back what you put into something, but you are firm. and you are clear and you don't belabor the point. I reject this. And then you fill it up with what you do want and you forget about it. You move on. If it still comes back to plague you, I reject you. And you may have to do that a few times for some things, and that's okay. But you'll notice that as you get used to using your power, you don't have to repeat things as much. And things do change for you because you said so. It's a powerful, magical exercise in and of itself to just understand your power in influencing the situations in your life. But more than that, it's a powerful tool to allow you to enjoy your experience. You get to choose. You get to have preferences. You don't have to understand the situation in order to reject it. In fact, your rejecting something is a confession that you don't understand it. Sometimes if somebody's coming at me with a bunch of stuff that I don't like, and I just say, I reject this. And then I say, but I'm open and receptive to my inner guide showing me what to do. I start with the rejection so I can clear my mind. I can clear the energy field. I reject it so that there can be a moment of peace. Then if I don't understand it, I say I'm open and receptive to my guide showing me what I want instead of this. I don't understand this. Please show me. Please teach me. Please help me. Frequently, we can't get there until we get to the point of rejecting whatever that is that's coming at us. If it's painful, if it's tense, if it's uncomfortable, it's not coming from spirit. If it's making you scared, it's not coming from spirit. It's coming from something else. And so you can use your power to annihilate that energy, to disperse that or neutralize that energy, simply through your own divinely given power of rejection. Everybody has the power of rejection available to them if they want to use it. Everybody, not special people. Everybody has it. You use it all the time. I don't like cilantro. Well, then don't order it, right? If cilantro comes on your food at a restaurant, you send it back. You reject it. Please give me something else, or please make this again without the cilantro. If your food is cold, you don't just say, well, I better eat it. I don't. I'm paying good money for this meal. I want hot food. Please get me a new one. It's not being rude. It's not being mean, but you do have to reject what you don't want. I've been out to dinner with people that, oh no, I'll just eat it the way it is. And then they bitch and moan that they hate their food. Why didn't you get something else? Why didn't you send it back? You don't want to use your God-given power of rejection. You don't have to, but then you get what you get. There's no difference from what goes on in a restaurant than what goes on in any other part of our lives. We have the power and the ability to say no to anything we do not want. And the best way to do that is silently and internally, or saying it out loud without being in the presence of another person. Because that way, we're not setting up any kind of controversy within the realm of ego personalities having to combat one another. We are taking it straight to source and just saying, I reject this. And what does source do with that? Reject it. You have the God-given power to reject it. So once you reject it, it's rejected. It's neutralized. Then it's up to you to not re-enter that vibrational pattern again. You've broken the pattern temporarily by rejecting it. Then you have to reinforce that new pattern one way or another. Either, like I said before, by filling it up with something that you do want, or asking your inner guidance to show you what the best next step is in replacing this thing. Either way, you've disrupted the energy pattern and you want it to stay disrupted. Most people don't know that they have the power to reject something. They don't know that it's not just limited to a restaurant, that it can be used universally. For those people, when they learn about it, it's good news, right? Well, cool, I can reject. Great. But if you do know about it, but then you decide not to, there's nothing anybody can do for you until you make up your mind to. Nobody can force you to reject what you do not want. So you have to do that. You have to remind yourself in the moment, when something's not going the way you want it to go and you haven't bothered to reject it, you haven't done your job. You haven't played your part in healing it, in changing it, in transforming it, because you've got to deal with your own energy patterns, your own vibration. And the way you do that is by saying no, cutting it off. You have the right and the privilege to have the vibrations within your mind that you desire and to cut off the vibrations that you do not want and that you do not desire. And those kinds of operations where you're changing the vibrations within must have their equivalent on the physical plane. It has to happen just as much as when you drop something and it falls to the floor. That's a law. That's a principle of gravity. That's a law of gravity. The law of cause and effect works the same way. If you disrupt an energy pattern, its equivalent in the physical world must also be disrupted. It may not happen immediately, but it will happen. Because just as a reminder, the three-dimensional world exists in time and space. So things happen in time here. But in the invisible world where you're doing the rejection, things are instantaneous. So you have control over that which is instantaneous, and then you have to allow for things to manifest as they will. But if you don't take it upon yourself to change those vibrations and disrupt those vibrations as soon as you experience them, then you can't complain that those things are maintained. Because what happens is people believe that conditions just last. Oh, this has always happened. This always will happen. It's just nothing ever changes in this part of my life. It just stays the same. That's because of our perception of that situation. In reality, it's changing all the time. It's just that it's changing into the same thing over and over again. Imagine somebody playing a movie on a screen, and you see all the different images moving around. There's somebody having a conversation, and then they go for a run. Maybe they go for a swim. They start having dinner. Whatever it is that's happening in the movie, right? Those images are constantly changing. Now, if the director put a still image of something on every frame of this film, it's not that the film is stuck. It's still rolling. It's just showing the same image over and over again. And we get the impression that nothing's changing. But the film's still rolling. It's not stuck. The same thing goes with our lives. There's nothing stuck. It's just that our minds are regurgitating the same image on the screen of space over and over again. And then we get the impression that nothing ever changes for us. If you start saying, I reject this, then all of a sudden that frame gets disrupted and you start to notice some changes in the way things manifest. And like I said before, sometimes you have to reject it several times, but ultimately what you're more concerned with is not what's happening on the screen of space, because that will take care of itself. Your concern is how you feel about something. If you reject it and you replace it with something that you do want, regardless of what appears to be happening outside of you, you start having a sense of peace about the situation. You start having a sense of security and enthusiasm. And it's just a matter of time before that scene comes up on the screen. It may not be immediate. You may have to let the film roll a while. It eventually will show up on the screen of space. And as you get better and better at this, the time lag shortens. But if you don't start changing the film by rejecting what you don't want, you're going to have this misunderstanding that nothing ever works for you, or that the universe is out to get you, or that you're victimized by the world. Don't come up with those ideas. Don't do that to yourself. Instead, accept that you have the power to disrupt. You have the power to reject. And it's up to you to use that power and use it liberally. Use it again and again until you start feeling better. And once you start feeling better, then you don't have to worry about it. You know, it's just a matter of time. Many times we in magic will work with very intricate, detailed systems, and they have their place. But sometimes what we need is something very simple to use in the moment to address whatever it is that we're confronting that we don't want. Instead, deal with it simply. Deal with it like a true magus and say, nope, I reject you. I reject you. Glinda did that with the Wicked Witch of the West. Be gone before someone drops a house on you. And she just left. You have the same power. You have the same power with anything in your world that you don't like. You have the power to say, I reject you. Be gone before someone drops a house on you. When you start using it and you start getting results, you don't have to wonder, will this work? It doesn't take long because you're going to start getting results in the moment. Like I said, maybe not always on the screen of space right away, but you're going to feel powerful. You're going to feel good because you're using a part of your mind that you possibly didn't know existed, or you forgot that it was available to you. Now I'm reminding you You have the power to reject anything, but you have to use it, and you have to use it liberally, and you must follow it up with what you want. Once you reject something, you must fill it up with what you do want, even though it may take a while before that frame shows up on the screen of space. If I'm dealing with a car problem, I reject this. My car works perfectly. That doesn't necessarily mean that magically my tire is going to stop being flat, but it does mean that the resolution of that blowout is going to be quite easy, quite simple. Happens all the time. When I remember to reject what I don't want and I fill that gap up with what I do want, the outcomes of some of these crises are ridiculously simple. Whereas if I forget that I have the power of rejection and I just bitch and moan and react to the situation, I don't get that same kind of a resolution. So when we remember to use our God-given power of rejection, and we use it responsibly, meaning that we always follow it up with what we do want, or follow it up with an asking of our guide, what do we want instead of this, and let that flash across our mind. If we don't use that power, we don't have the option to have things change, because what's in our mind is our responsibility. And if you don't reject what you don't want and things don't change, it's not a big mystery, is it? Don't allow your ego mind to take this and say, why did you create this reality for yourself? And don't you feel stupid that you have problems? You should be able to reject that and it should disappear immediately. Don't play those games with yourself. Don't worry about how it's going to resolve. Don't worry about any of the future with this. All you have to concern yourself with is using the power, pressing the button. Let spirit take care of the rest of it. You don't worry about how it's going to manifest or how it's going to change or anything. You just use that power of rejection and then follow it up with what you do want. And then you deal with whatever the situation is in the moment based on following your inner guidance. And you let it resolve itself as it will. And frequently, you won't recognize that it was miraculous until you look back at it. You got to let that take care of itself. What you worry about is how you feel internally. That's where the causative plane is. And if you're not using your power of rejection before you start to create what you want, then you're not disrupting the thought patterns that created what you didn't want in the first place or participated in them in one way or another. Maybe you didn't necessarily create the situation, but on some level, you participated in it. So if you reject it, then your part in that is gone. It's over. You've removed yourself from that situation completely. You've taken responsibility for your own thought systems and your own vibrations by rejecting that which you do not want and replacing it with what you do in the moment, firmly. And before we end, I just want to say, one of the things when people banish that I've noticed, I've seen this especially in group rituals, I want you to take what you do not want and cast it into the fire. I've seen people, they'll take the herb or whatever they're supposed to put what they don't want into and then cast it into the fire. I see them get very emotional about it. And I think to myself, you've just created more of that. You want to be nonchalant, firm but nonchalant. You don't put up with it like you would to a salesperson or to a small child who's misbehaving. You don't turn it into a big deal because you don't want to feed the old thought form. You want to reject the old thought form. You want to dismantle the old thought form and replace it with something new. It's that simple and it's that powerful. And you have the power to say no. So use it. And you're going to be very happy you did. Thank you very much for spending some time with me today. Until next time, blessed be.